owning a cleaning company can be quite brutal. It can be really difficult to run, and a lot of times it's not super glamorous. But there are definitely some things that you can do to make it harder on yourself. And I want to talk through my top 4 things that I would avoid if I had to go back and start over again. Sorry if you can hear my dog sneezing in the background. So I'm just going to rapid fire through these so that you can just have like a little checklist of things to avoid. This is not me talking from a pedestal by any means. This is me talking from my own experience. Number 1, stop letting your lack of boundaries affect how you feel about managing people. I wrote that down because I know it sounds like a lot of words, but this is one that I feel is very, very important. Managing people can feel super stressful. It can feel like it's very anxiety inducing. And I myself felt a lot of resentment towards my team because of the lack of boundaries that I had. And I experienced that myself, but I also see it in most of the new cleaning business owners that I talk to that are like new to growing their team. Their lack of boundaries then starts to make them feel like people are walking all over them. And that's how I felt too. When it came to call-ins, when it came to when people would communicate with me. I would say probably 95% of my like quote unquote negative management conversations stemmed from me having no boundaries. So for instance, like all of my negative conversations about calling in with my team, they were really awkward for me. Like I would beg people to come in. I would beg them to come in because I had no recourse. And I thought, I need to like show them how desperate I am to get the result that I want, basically, which was I wanted them to come in and not call in anymore. And that felt awkward and horrible. And sometimes I would get to termination conversations. Felt horrible. Looking back, what was my policy on call-ins at that time? I developed a policy on call-ins after 3 years, but in those first 3 years, I had no policy. Nobody knew what my boundary was because I didn't have one. Like I said, don't let your lack of boundaries dictate how you feel about managing people. It can be really easy to like slide into that, oh my God, I hate managing people, or, oh, I hate having these conversations. But why is it that managing people feels like tug and pull all the time? I bet that it's probably stemming from your lack of boundaries. And if you would just put those boundaries in place, those conversations would feel a lot smoother and they would probably happen a lot less. Okay, I could talk about that for a long time, so I'm gonna move on to number 2. Number 2 is pivoting when something requires effort. This is me talking to my younger self, but I always thought, for instance, hiring. I always thought, oh my gosh, well, if I've had 10 interviews, and I still haven't found the person, then the person's just not out there. And I need to, instead of hiring from 9 to 5, maybe I'll just go to commercial and I'll hire because people are looking for cleaning work only at night. Or maybe I'll hire at double the rate, even though I couldn't afford it. I would spiral and I would think, oh, because it's requiring effort, it means that I'm doing something wrong and something huge needs to change. And that's just not the case. It's just not the case. Anymore, I say test with 1,000. Test with 1,000, because then my brain is like, oh yeah, we have to test this thing 1,000 times. Not always 1,000, but we need to test this thing a lot before we decide that we need to pivot. It might just be the case, and most of the time it is, that the reps that you have to put in are a function of the thing that you're doing. It's like, you might need to do 10 interviews every single time you're like, 10 is not even the right. I mean, looking back now, I'm like, how did I find people so quickly? Now I'm like, 3 days a week, you're doing 3 interviews in the morning, 3 interviews at night. So you're doing 6 interviews 3 times a week, like having interview time slots. The volume just has changed tremendously in my head, like what I know is required to get the result that I want. Same thing with sales. I used to think, I had, I think it was door hangers. Either door hangers or like brochures. I did this twice. One for Airbnbs and one for residential. And I remember the residential ones. It was out in this neighborhood that I was really excited about. It's like my favorite neighborhood. And I did 150 flyers or door hangers, whatever they were. And I was like, we're about to get this entire neighborhood. I spent about $200, which I think was the last $200 that I had on these door hangers. And I was like, we're going to have all of that neighborhood now. Like, how are we even going to book this many clients? I don't even know. Didn't get a single response back. And I was like, door hangers don't work. Like, at the time I was like, guess the door hangers don't work. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, if you do less than 1,000 door hangers, I don't even want to talk about it yet. I don't even want to talk about the response rate yet or the closer. I don't care. Like, you haven't done enough volume. So if it's requiring work and effort, it might just be the case that it requires work and effort. Don't immediately, this is me again talking to my younger self, don't immediately think, something's wrong, we need to completely change the whole thing, because then you start to change so many things all the time that you have no data, because you have such small sample sizes for each and every strategy that you just have no data on what actually works. Okay, trying to rapid fire through these. Number 3 is being the friend instead of the boss. I put here, you have a duty to your employers to show up as a boss. And I have that written down here because I always used to think that showing up as the boss meant it was like a detriment to the friendship. So it was like, oh my gosh, I have to just completely shut these people out. And I have to like build a wall between us to make sure that I was protected emotionally, because they're going to leave at any point, or they're going to like betray me and I just can't get close to them, so that they have no like option to even do that to me. And I don't think about it like that anymore. I actually think about showing up as the boss as like an additional layer to the friendships and bonds that you build with the team. And the duty that comes along with being the boss is showing up prepared. It's really just that simple. Showing up prepared to what SOPs do you have built out? What processes do you have in place? What people have you hired? What conversations have you had, right? Not ignoring the problems, but actually like tackling them head on. Showing up as the boss doesn't mean that it has to be detrimental to the friendship. It means that there's an additional layer of responsibilities that you have to show up and do for your team, for everybody to be successful. Okay, and number 4, this one might seem a little random, but paying based on experience. When you're hiring your cleaners, you really have to be super strategic with your pay. And I see so many people just pay whatever number comes to mind, and they hire, one person at one rate, and then another person has 2 years of experience, so they bump it up a few dollars, and then another person comes on, they have 5 years of experience, they're going to bump it up a few more dollars. And while I understand the sentiment, and I'm not against that sentiment, you just need to make sure that you have a strategy in place with that, because it is so easy with a cleaning company to overpay. And that is an unfortunate function of this business, is that we just have small margin, especially, I'm talking mostly small businesses here under like 30,000 a month. But even above 30,000 a month, you have to be so strategic with how much you pay, because the money is tight in a cleaning company. And when you overpay, you really don't want to go anywhere but up with pay, right? So when you bring cleaners in, if you randomly realize that you were overpaying and you're like, oh, wow, I actually truly can't afford this. And by everybody who's not in the cleaning industry, I want you to know that when I say can't afford, this is not corporate speak for like, oh, we need to have money for our shareholders, or we need to have money to like reinvest in XYZ, or $1 million for our CEO. This, when I say can't afford a certain amount in payroll, I mean I have firsthand seen the effect of overpaying my team, and the effect of that is not paying me a couple percentage points less. It is literally the bank account going negative. The bank account going negative. And not only has that happened in my business when I was overpaying my team for how much money we were making, but it has also happened in many other cleaning companies that I've talked to where they're struggling to pay payroll. And by struggling to pay payroll, I literally mean their bank account is going negative. So this is a really important one to me, not because I undervalue the cleaning team, but because I think it's important to know when you're getting into the cleaning industry, you have to be strategic with how you're paying your team so that it doesn't tank your business. Usually the problem stems from not charging enough. So you can kind of combat this issue by increasing rates. But if you don't increase rates and you just increase pay, then you start to get in really big trouble. And it can be, you know, putting you in a position where you have to make a hard decision about owning the business at all. And I just don't want you to do that. And that was a mistake that I made. If you are looking to grow your team, or you're like, I don't know what the heck to pay my people, I actually have a chart that can help with that. So I'll link that below. I hope this was helpful to know what my top 4 mistakes to avoid would be. And I hope it's helpful to know that I have made these mistakes. So if you feel like you're in the midst of making them or have made them too, you're definitely not alone. And if this was helpful, I would love for you to subscribe. I would love for you to stick around for monthly videos that I put out about cleaning companies, growing cleaning companies, owning them, mistakes that I've made, managing a team, training a team, all things cleaning company related. And I also wanted to thank our sponsor for today, which is Jobber, which actually I have the mug that I got here like a year ago. Jobber is a software that I actually had from the beginning of my business. I lucked out and I just got Jobber because I think I stumbled upon it somewhere. And I ended up keeping it for the rest of my business. It was so helpful. It allowed me to delegate properly, especially the administrative assistant role, where she did all of the billing, she did all of the scheduling, she did everything when it came to clients. She also kept track of timesheets, everything that was basically the operations of my business. It was hosted in Jobber, and I was able to delegate that. And at one point I had 18 employees. They all had profiles on Jobber, and it just was seamless. I love the software so much. Jobber is something that I recommend every single business owner that I talk to. When I sold my company, the company that purchased it, because we ended up like, basically they merged my company with their existing one, and they used Jobber too. So it was just like so seamless. Yeah, Jobber is the best. They keep everything super organized, super efficient, and like I said, able to delegate was like the most important thing to me. If you're looking to kind of get organized, especially like I said with timesheets or anything administrative, anything client related, I would definitely recommend Jobber. I'll be linking a discount and a free trial in the description below. And thank you, Jobber, for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one.